Welcome to sleep storytelling. Let your body relax, your mind unwind, and gently drift into rest. You're safe here. Let's begin. As autumn deepened, the air turned crisp and clear, carrying the scent of wood smoke and fallen leaves. Clara moved through the days with a quiet contentment, her hands busy with the last harvest from the garden, preserving apples and late-season herbs. The old house seemed to hum softly with life, its walls holding the echoes of laughter, tears, and whispered memories. Linda had settled into a rhythm here, her presence a bridge between past and future. She often sat by the window, writing in a small notebook, capturing moments and thoughts, perhaps inspired by Clara's letters, or by the calm beauty of the lake and woods surrounding them. Jur, too, had found a certain peace in this place. His paintings had become less frequent but more intimate, each stroke a quiet reflection of the seasons and the people who lived within them. One afternoon, he unveiled a final work. A delicate portrait of Clara, bathed in the golden light of autumn, surrounded by the garden she had nurtured with such care. "That's how I see you," Jur said softly. "Strong, gentle, alive with the world around you." Clara felt a swell of gratitude, her heart full. The house by the lake had given her so much: healing, friendship, and the chance to weave the threads of her life into something whole. One evening, as twilight painted the sky in shades of lavender and rose, Clara and Linda walked down to the water's edge. The lake was calm, reflecting the fiery trees and the pale moon rising above. Clara reached into her coat pocket and pulled out the bundle of letters, now tied with a ribbon faded from time. She handed them to Linda. "Keep them," she said. "Not just as stories of what was, but as seeds for what will be." Linda nodded, tears shining in her eyes. "I will. Thank you, Clara, for everything." The two stood in silence, the world holding its breath around them, the lake whispering its timeless song. As the night deepened, Clara felt a profound peace settle within her, a knowing that life's seasons would continue, that memory and love would endure, and that the house by the lake would remain a sanctuary for all who came after. She smiled softly, her heart light, ready for whatever the next chapter might bring. As the night wrapped the house in velvet shadows and the lake whispered its timeless song, Clara felt a deep calm settle over her. The house by the lake was more than a place. It was a living story, a sanctuary where memory and life intertwined. And in the steady rhythm of the seasons, with friends and memories beside her, Clara knew she had found her way home. Summer slipped quietly into early autumn, and the house by the lake stood steady against the shifting light and cooling air. Clara found herself moving through the days with a gentle grace, her thoughts no longer tangled in the past but flowing freely into the present. The garden still bloomed with late flowers, asters and goldenrods swaying softly in the breeze, while the lake mirrored the changing sky in hues of amber and soft gray. Linda had grown more confident, her laughter ringing through the woods like a bright bell. She helped Clara prepare preserves from the late harvest, their hands sticky with berries and their voices mingling in comfortable conversation. The letters, once heavy with grief, now seemed to breathe hope and connection, their edges worn but their words alive. Jur's visits became moments of quiet celebration. One afternoon, he brought a small painting of the old house framed by fiery maple leaves, its windows glowing warmly against the crisp air. Clara accepted the gift with a grateful smile, feeling the invisible threads that wove them all together, past, present, and future. On a clear evening, as the sun dipped low and the first stars winked awake, Clara, Linda, and Jur sat on the porch wrapped in blankets. The air smelled of pine and earth, and the lake lay still and deep beneath the vast sky. Clara felt a quiet joy settle within her, a feeling that had taken years to grow, the understanding that life, in all its fragility and strength, was a continuous unfolding. The house, the lake, the garden, the letters, and the friendships, they were all part of a living story, one that would carry on long after she was gone. She reached over and squeezed Linda's hand gently. "Thank you," she said softly, "for helping me find the courage to keep living and loving." Linda smiled, her eyes bright in the fading light. "And thank you, Clara, for showing me how to remember and to hope." The lake reflected the stars, the house glowed warmly behind them, and in that moment, time seemed to hold its breath, full of promise, peace, and the quiet magic of belonging. One evening, under a sky streaked with the soft colors of twilight, Clara sat with Linda and Jur on the veranda, the air alive with the scent of blooming jasmine and fresh earth. The lake shimmered like a mirror, reflecting the endless dance of sky and water. In that circle of friendship and light, Clara felt the fullness of life, its sorrows and its blessings, its endings and beginnings, and knew, deep in her heart, that she was home. The days grew longer, and the warmth of late spring settled gently over the lake and the woods. Clara felt the steady pulse of life all around her, the hum of bees among the flowers, the soft rustle of leaves in the breeze, and the quiet songs of birds that had returned from their winter migrations. It was a symphony of renewal, subtle yet profound. Linda had become more than a visitor. She was now a constant presence, her youthful energy breathing new life into the old house. They shared mornings filled with planting, afternoons spent reading by the fire, and evenings watching the stars emerge one by one above the darkening lake. In these moments, Clara found a peace she hadn't known in years. One afternoon, as the sun warmed the earth and the garden buzzed with bees, Clara and Linda sat on the veranda with cups of tea. The letters, once a private conversation between Clara and her sister, were now a shared treasure. "Do you think Marie would have liked Linda?" Clara asked softly, watching the girl carefully tend to a patch of daisies. "I think she would have," Linda replied with a smile. "You carry a lot of her in you." The words settled between them, gentle and true. Jur visited less often now, though when he came, his paintings captured the lingering magic of the place, the dance of light through leaves, the quiet reflection of the lake at dusk, the tender way shadows grew long and soft. His art was a reminder that beauty endured, even in the face of loss. One evening, as fireflies flickered in the warm dusk, Clara took out her final letter. It was addressed not to Marie, nor to Linda, but simply to herself, a quiet meditation on the journey she had walked. She read the words aloud, her voice steady and clear, the letter a gentle affirmation of acceptance, hope, and the enduring power of love. She sealed the letter and placed it beside the others, a quiet testament to a life lived fully, in the embrace of memory and hope. Outside, the wind whispered through the pines, carrying with it the promise of spring, a promise Clara was ready to welcome, with open arms and an open heart. Spring's gentle return was like a soft awakening, as the world stirred beneath a veil of pale light and tender green. The lake began to breathe again, its frozen surface melting into ripples that caught the first golden rays of dawn. Clara, sitting by the window with Max resting at her feet, felt the stirring of something new inside her, a quiet hope that had taken root through the long winter months. Linda came back with the blossoming trees, her presence a bright thread woven into the fabric of Clara's days. Together they walked through the garden, where the earth was warm and fragrant, and the first flowers unfurled shy petals toward the sun. Clara showed Linda the spots where she and Marie had planted bulbs years ago, now blooming faithfully each year, silent witnesses to time's passage. One morning, as they tended to a patch of wild flowers, Linda asked, "Do you think memories grow like plants? Like something that needs care to keep living?" Clara smiled, her eyes reflecting the light dancing on the water. "Yes," she said softly. Memories are like seeds. Some take root and flourish. Others need a gentle hand to help them bloom. Jur returned as well, his easel set up near the water's edge. The paintings he brought captured the vibrant rebirth of the land, the delicate blush of cherry blossoms, the shimmering light on the lake, the joyful dance of butterflies. One canvas in particular caught Clara's eye, a scene of the house at dawn, bathed in soft pink light, the garden alive with color and promise. "It's the beginning of everything," Jur said quietly, noticing her gaze. "A new chapter." Clara felt a surge of gratitude, for the house, for the lake, for the seasons that wove their stories through her life. The letters she had written, once a bridge to the past, now felt like a gift to the future, carried gently in Linda's hands. As spring deepened, Clara found herself writing less to Marie and more to the world, notes of hope, small joys, and the quiet beauty of everyday moments. The house, the lake, and the garden had become more than places. They were living memories, shared stories, and ongoing connections. "I'm glad you gave me the letters," Linda said softly, her breath forming little clouds in the cold air. "They're like a map, not just of your past, but of what it means to keep going." Clara smiled, feeling the warmth of the moment settle deep within her. "Life isn't always easy," she replied, "but it's made beautiful by those moments we choose to hold on to." As they turned back toward the house, the leaves crunching beneath their feet, Clara knew the story was far from over. The seasons would keep turning, the lake would keep reflecting the sky, and new memories would grow alongside the old. In this place of quiet grace, she had found a way to live fully, with love, with loss, and with the steady, unending hope of tomorrow. Winter crept back in with a quiet dignity, frosting the trees and silencing the world beneath a thick blanket of snow. The lake lay frozen and still, a vast mirror reflecting the pale, low light of the short days. Inside the house, warmth pulsed from the hearth, a steady glow against the cold outside. Clara moved through these months with a soft rhythm, her days measured by simple rituals, lighting the fire, brewing tea, tending to Max's needs. The garden slept beneath the snow, but in her mind, it blossomed with memories and hopes, waiting patiently for spring's return. Linda's visits became less frequent as school and life pulled her away, but each time she came, it was like a burst of sunlight. They would sit by the fire, sharing stories, sometimes in silence, wrapped in the comforting cocoon of the old house. Jur's paintings during this season were quieter, subdued, winter landscapes with subtle blues and grays, capturing the hushed beauty of snow-laden branches and frozen reflections. One evening, he brought a small canvas, a simple, tender scene of a single red cardinal perched on a bare branch, its bright feathers a vivid contrast to the white world. "This bird," Jur said, "it reminds me of you. Small, resilient, full of life even in the cold." Clara accepted the painting with a gentle smile, feeling the truth in his words settle deep in her heart. One snowy night, Clara sat by the window, watching the flakes drift lazily down, each one unique and perfect in its fleeting existence. She took up her pen and wrote a final letter, not to Marie, not to Linda, but to herself. It was a quiet affirmation of all she had learned, that grief and love are intertwined, that healing is a journey without end, and that in the stillness, there is profound strength. That night, beneath a sky thick with stars, Clara sat on the porch with Max curled at her feet. The lake was calm, reflecting the constellations with perfect clarity. The gentle rustle of the trees and the soft breath of the night wrapped around her like a tender embrace. In that moment she knew that life was not about forgetting, but about remembering with love, and moving forward with a heart open to whatever might come. The house at the lake had given her that gift. And now, through Linda, its story would live on. The nights grew cooler, and the first hints of autumn drifted through the forest like a whispered secret. Leaves turned slowly from green to gold and crimson, carpeting the ground in a soft, rustling tapestry. Clara noticed the change with a quiet reverence, each falling leaf a reminder of the passing time, of cycles beyond human control, yet deeply intertwined with her own journey. She spent her mornings gathering fallen branches to fuel the fire, the scent of burning wood mingling with the crisp, earthy air. The house seemed to breathe differently now, settling into the season's quiet rhythm. Even Max, ever faithful, moved with a slower pace, resting more often by the hearth. Linda stayed longer these days, drawn by the beauty of the turning leaves and the stories Clara shared beneath the wide sky. One afternoon, wrapped in warm sweaters, they sat on the porch watching the lake mirror the fiery hues of autumn. Clara read aloud from one of her letters, a passage filled with the bittersweet ache of memory and the hope nestled within acceptance. Between the words there was silence. But it was not empty. It was full of understanding, of connection, of the unspoken threads weaving their lives together. Jer visited too, carrying new paintings that captured the fleeting magic of fall. The amber glow filtering through pine needles, the delicate frost kissing early mornings, the long shadows stretching across the earth. His art seemed to speak a language beyond words, echoing the quiet transformation unfolding within Clara. One evening, as twilight deepened into night, Clara found herself walking down to the lake with Linda. The air was sharp but gentle, carrying the scent of pine and damp earth. The water was still, reflecting the first stars as they blinked awake in the darkening sky. They stood together on the dock, side by side, looking out over the glassy surface. The sun dappling through the branches and warming their backs as they worked side by side. The flowers were now a wild chorus of color, bright reds, soft pinks, deep purples, nodding gently in the breeze. Clara marveled at how life persisted with such quiet determination. The garden was no longer just a place of memories. It had become a living, breathing testament to growth and renewal. And through tending it, she too was growing, her heart slowly opening to the gentle rhythms of the world. Some afternoons, Clara would settle into the old wooden rocking chair on the veranda, a cup of tea warming her hands, and watch Linda explore the edges of the property. The girls' laughter was a fresh song that mingled with the calls of the loons on the lake. It was in these moments Clara felt the pulse of time, how the past, present, and future could intertwine like vines growing strong and wild. Jer's visits had become less frequent as the summer wore on, but each time he came, he brought a new painting that seemed to capture a piece of the house's soul. One evening, as twilight softened the edges of the world, he presented Clara with a small canvas, a delicate study of the wild flowers by the lakeshore, their petals glowing faintly in the fading light. "It's for you," Jer said quietly. "To remind you of the beauty that's always here, even when it feels hidden." Clara accepted the gift with a grateful heart. It hung by the fireplace, a silent companion to her thoughts and memories. As summer began to wane, Clara and Linda took long walks along the lake, their steps slow and unhurried. They talked about the future, about hopes and fears, and about the unseen threads that connected all things, people, nature, time itself. One afternoon, as the sun dipped low, Clara found herself writing a final letter, not to Marie, not to herself, but to Linda. It was a letter of passing on, a gift of stories and lessons learned in the quiet corners of the old house by the water. She wrote of love and loss, of silence and sound, of the enduring power of memory to heal and transform. And in the closing lines she offered a blessing, that Linda would carry these words with her, as a lantern to light her way through whatever seasons she might face. The letter folded neatly, placed with the others in the worn bundle, Clara felt a deep sense of completion. The house, the lake, the garden, they were all part of a story that was both ending and beginning. The way she moved with hope and eagerness, unburdened by the weight of years, yet somehow carrying the echoes of past grief. One afternoon, as they sat on the veranda, the air thick with the scent of blooming lilacs, Clara finally handed Linda the bundle of letters. The paper was worn at the edges, the handwriting a map of sorrow, love, and healing. "These are for you," Clara said softly. "Not just to remember Marie, but to carry with you. To remind you that even in loss, life goes on." Linda's eyes filled with tears, and she took the letters gently, as if holding something precious and fragile. The days lengthened into warm, golden evenings, the lake sparkling under the sun's caress. Clara found herself sitting on the dock, watching the water ripple and dance, the same water she and Marie had once played beside. But now it felt different, not a reminder of what was lost, but of what remained. Jur came by less often as spring deepened, but when he did, he brought with him new paintings, vibrant and full of light. He captured the garden in full bloom, the dance of shadows beneath the pines, and the serene surface of the lake at dawn. Each canvas was a testament to the beauty Clara had found again, a mirror of the peace that settled slowly into her soul. The house, once heavy with silence, now hummed with life, the creak of floorboards underfoot, the rustle of pages turning, the soft murmur of conversations shared with friends new and old. One morning, Clara wrote a letter, not to Marie, nor to herself, but to the world she was ready to embrace again. It was a letter of gratitude, of acceptance, of hope. She sealed it with a quiet smile, knowing that life's seasons would continue to turn, and she would turn with them. As the sun set over the lake, painting the sky in hues of pink and gold, Clara felt a deep, abiding peace. The house by the lake was more than wood and stone. It was memory, love, resilience, and the promise of every new day. And in that moment, with the gentle lapping of the water and the whisper of the wind through the trees, Clara was home. The days stretched long and warm, carrying the sweet hum of summer deep into the woods and across the shimmering lake. Clara and Linda spent their mornings tending the garden. Linda visited less often during winter, but when she came, her presence was a burst of energy and warmth. They would sit by the fire, wrapped in thick blankets, sharing stories and dreams. Linda's youthful hope and curiosity rekindled a spark in Clara, reminding her that life was a continuum, the old making way for the new, yet never truly fading away. One evening, Jur stopped by with a small package, a new painting wrapped carefully in brown paper. Clara unwrapped it with reverence. The image was simple yet profound. The old wooden dock at the lake's edge, half buried in snow, the water beneath the dark, still promise of spring. In the distance, the silhouette of two figures, a woman and a young girl, standing side by side, looking out at the horizon. "It's you and Linda," Jur said quietly. "I wanted to capture the moment when winter begins to loosen its grip." Clara felt a lump rise in her throat, touched by the artist's understanding. The painting was more than an image. It was a testament to endurance, to companionship, and to the quiet hope that carried her through the darkest months. As the days slowly lengthened, the promise of spring whispered on the wind. Clara began to prepare the garden again, turning the soil beneath the snow, dreaming of the blooms yet to come. The letters, now a treasured collection, waited patiently for the moment she would entrust them to Linda, a bridge between past and future, between memory and life. And beneath the vast, star-filled sky, with the lake frozen but alive beneath the ice, Clara understood that healing was not a destination but a journey, one she would walk gently, step by step, surrounded by the enduring beauty of the house, the lake, and the seasons that held her heart. Spring returned softly, like a whispered promise across the frozen lake. The snow thawed slowly, revealing tender green shoots pushing their way through the damp earth, fragile yet determined. Clara felt the change in the air. The slight warmth on her skin, the song of returning birds, the sweet, damp scent of renewal. She spent mornings in the garden, her fingers careful and sure as they turned over soil, coaxing life from the earth once more. The roses she had pruned in winter now promised buds, and the tulips stood proud, their colors bright against the soft brown of the ground. Clara's heart lifted with each new bloom, a quiet celebration of persistence, of time moving forward. Linda was there too, her laughter like sunlight as she helped plant seeds and tend to the budding plants. Their friendship had grown deep, rooted in shared stories and the gentle care of the garden. Clara often caught herself watching the girl with a quiet affection. Gazing out over the water. Clara felt a pang of recognition and gratitude. The painting held her story, her solitude, and the slow, steady healing she was beginning to feel. The seasons continued their slow dance. Autumn arrived with a shower of gold and crimson leaves, the air crisp and sharp. Clara and Linda gathered apples from the orchard and pressed them into warm cider, laughter filling the kitchen where the scent of cinnamon and spice mingled with the fading sunlight. Winter came quietly, wrapping the house in snow and stillness. Clara lit the fire each evening, its glow casting flickering shadows on the walls. The lake froze over, a glassy expanse reflecting the pale sky. In the hush of those cold months, Clara's letters grew more reflective, filled with hopes for spring and the gentle acceptance of the cycles of life. One snowy afternoon, as Clara watched Linda sledding down a nearby hill, a feeling settled over her, a deep, abiding peace. The house, the lake, the people who had come into her life, they were threads in a tapestry woven from loss, love, and renewal. She thought again of the bundle of letters, now worn at the edges but rich with meaning. One day soon, she would give them to Linda, a legacy not just of grief, but of resilience and connection. And as the snowflakes drifted silently down, cloaking the world in white, Clara knew she was ready to face whatever seasons lay ahead, anchored by the memories she cherished and the quiet strength she had found within herself. The winter deepened, wrapping the lake and the surrounding woods in a soft, muffling blanket of snow. Clara found comfort in the quiet solitude of the season, the slow passage of days marked by the gentle crackle of the fire, and the steady rhythm of her breathing. The house creaked softly, its timbers settling against the cold, as if breathing alongside her in a shared stillness. Max was a constant companion in these long evenings. He would curl up near the hearth, his warmth a tangible reminder that life endured even in the coldest months. Clara often found herself stroking his coarse fur, the simple act grounding her when memories threatened to spill over. Though the lake was frozen and the garden buried beneath snow, Clara's inner world was far from still. Her letters, those quiet conversations with Marie, became a lifeline, not only a way to keep her sister near but a mirror reflecting her own gradual healing. She wrote of the seasons, of the changing light, of the sharp contrast between the silence outside and the murmur of thoughts within. One evening, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon in a blaze of amber and violet, Clara sat on the veranda with a new letter in hand. The house was alive with the sounds of night, crickets, rustling leaves, the occasional bark of Max somewhere in the distance. She wrote slowly, each word a small act of courage. This letter was not to Marie, nor to herself. It was to the future, to the endless unfolding of days yet to come, to Linda, to the life waiting beyond grief. It was a promise to live fully, to hold both joy and sorrow close, and to find peace in the quiet turning of the seasons. As she folded the letter and placed it carefully in the bundle, Clara felt the house settle around her, a living thing that held the past and future in its wooden heart. The lake shimmered softly under the moon, and somewhere deep inside she knew she was home, at last. The days lengthened, and the garden burst into full bloom, a riot of colors and scents that seemed almost too vivid for the quiet stillness of the place. Clara found herself drawn more and more into the rhythms of the earth, the turning of soil, the careful pruning of rose branches, the soft hum of bees flitting between blossoms. Each task was a meditation, a tether to the living world that gently pulled her from the shadow of grief. Linda had become a steady presence, her laughter light and sincere, a balm against the lingering silence Clara often felt pressing against the walls. The girl's curiosity about the house, the lake, and especially the letters had blossomed into a deep respect for the past, a willingness to carry the stories forward. One afternoon, as the sun warmed the wooden floorboards of the veranda, Clara sat beside Linda, reading aloud from a letter she had just written. The words spoke of memory. How it could be like the lake, clear and still one moment, then rippling with hidden depths the next. Linda listened intently, her eyes wide with understanding. "It's like the garden," she said softly. "Sometimes it looks bare, but underneath everything is growing." Clara smiled, touched by the insight. "Exactly." Jer's visits became more frequent again, and with each encounter, a quiet friendship deepened. The painter carried with him an unspoken understanding of loss, which he expressed in his art, and the subtle shifts of light and shadow, the interplay of colors that seemed to tell stories beyond words. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of oranges and purples, Jer showed Clara a new painting. It was of the lake, bathed in the soft light of dawn, the mist curling like breath above the water. In the foreground, a solitary figure sat on the dock, a woman wrapped in a. She often found Max waiting at the door, his gray muzzle soft in the early light, eyes bright with a quiet trust that comforted her more than words ever could. The dog's presence was a small miracle, a thread connecting her to the life that still pulsed beyond loss. Each morning, he would follow her as she walked through the garden, sniffing at blooms and resting his head gently on her knee as if to say, "I'm here." Clara's thoughts often drifted back to Marie during these tranquil walks. She imagined her sister's laughter echoing in the rustling leaves, the way she used to chase butterflies with wild abandon, her spirit untamed and free. The guilt Clara had carried, the times she had been distant when Marie was sick, softened now into a tender sorrow. She understood that love had many forms, and silence sometimes held more meaning than words. Linda came more frequently, her visits becoming a regular thread in Clara's days. Together, they planted new flowers and pruned the old rose bushes, their hands working in harmony, bridging years and stories with every touch of the soil. The girl's questions were gentle, curious, never rushing, and Clara found herself opening up, sharing memories and small truths she hadn't spoken aloud in years. One afternoon, while the sun poured gold across the wooden floor, Linda found one of Clara's letters tucked beneath a loose floorboard. Her eyes widened as she read the delicate script, the raw honesty woven through the pages. Instead of retreating, she looked up and asked softly, "Can I read more?" Clara nodded, a fragile smile curving her lips. "They're letters to Marie," she said simply. "But really, they're for me too." From that moment, the letters took on new life, no longer private whispers but a shared thread of remembrance and healing between two generations. Linda read aloud sometimes, her voice a soft melody mingling with the creak of the house and the distant lapping of the lake. Jer's paintings began to change as well. Where before his canvases captured the forest in muted, contemplative tones, now bursts of color emerged, fiery reds of autumn leaves, the soft pink of spring blossoms, the deep blue of twilight. He told Clara it was because of the light here, but she knew it was more, the light of connection, of shared stories, of lives intertwined by loss and hope. The village remained a quiet presence on the edge of her world. Mevrouw van Dyck stopped by with jars of homemade jam, always eager to exchange tales of Roger stories that seemed as rooted in the soil as the ancient trees around them. Clara listened, sometimes adding her own fragments, building a mosaic of community and time. "Do you think Marie would have liked the garden?" Linda asked one afternoon, glancing up with a shy smile. Clara smiled back, the warmth reaching her eyes. "She would have loved it. She always had a way with flowers, fierce and gentle at the same time." They shared a moment of silence, the kind that holds stories too deep for words. It was in these quiet exchanges that Clara felt the distance between past and present shrink, the weight of loss easing just enough to let hope slip in. Jer visited less frequently now, but when he did, he brought with him the scent of pine and paint. He carried a canvas under one arm, always half-finished, as if the act of painting was a journey he didn't want to end. Sometimes he would sit on the porch steps, watching Clara work in the garden, and they would talk about light, how it changed with the seasons, how it shaped the world in ways both subtle and grand. One evening, as the sun dipped low behind the hills, Jer said quietly, "There's a kind of peace here, Clara. Something that doesn't rush or demand." She nodded, feeling the truth of it settle deep inside her. "It's the house, the lake, the trees. They remind us that time flows differently in this place." As spring deepened, Clara found herself opening to the world again, not in loud gestures, but in small, deliberate steps. She started to write a new kind of letter, one not bound to the past but reaching toward what lay ahead. It was a letter to herself, a gentle promise to live with kindness and patience, to embrace the silence and the noise, the joy and the sorrow. The garden bloomed wildly that year, colors bursting in every corner, as if celebrating alongside her. The old house held its breath in the warm evenings, crickets chirping softly in the distance, the lake shimmering under the moonlight. Clara felt a quiet strength growing inside her, a steady flame fueled by memories, friendship, and the endless turning of the seasons. And as she folded the final letter and tucked it safely away, she knew that this place, the house by the lake, the garden, the friendships, the letters, was more than a refuge. It was home. Not just a building, but a living story, written slowly, day by day, with love and grace. The mornings grew warmer, and the air carried the sweet chorus of birdsong that seemed to wrap itself around the house like a gentle embrace. Clara would wake before dawn, drawn outside by the quiet stirring of the world. She cherished these hours, the fragile cusp between night and day when everything was still and full of possibility. Linda had come from the village, drawn to the silence, to the solitude of the garden where she began to help. Their friendship grew slowly, wordless at first, a shared tending of earth and memory. Clara watched the girl bloom like the flowers under her care, and found in her a new kind of grace, the bridge between what was lost and what might still be found. The seasons turned as they always did. Summer brought warmth that seeped into the wooden beams, and the lake thrummed with life. Autumn painted the forest gold and crimson, the mist curling like breath in the early mornings. Winter wrapped the house in a hush of snow, a soft white blanket that muffled the world. Throughout it all, Clara's letters continued, her voice steady, full of small observations and quiet reflections. She never sent these letters. They were hers alone, a conversation with the sister she missed, a way to hold on and to let go at once. And then one day, as the first crocuses pushed through the thawing earth and the lake's surface glittered with new light, Clara gathered her letters, the collection of seasons, of moments, of grief and hope. She folded them carefully and handed them to Linda, her eyes full of something tender and resolute. "This is for you," she said softly. "Not to remember Marie, but to remember how we keep living." Linda took the bundle with wide eyes, understanding in a way that needed no words. Clara looked out over the blooming garden, the gentle clatter of young ducklings on the water, and she wrote one last letter, not to Marie, but to herself. It was a promise, a beginning, a quiet celebration of the life that still unfolded, slow and steady, like the turning of the seasons by the lake. Clara watched the young ducklings waddle along the water's edge, their fluffy bodies bobbing with each hesitant step. The lake was alive again, as if it had been holding its breath all winter, and now exhaled in bursts of light and sound. The air smelled of fresh earth and wildflowers, a scent that seemed to pulse with the promise of new beginnings. She rose slowly from the wooden chair on the veranda, the creak familiar and comforting. The garden was waking too. Tiny shoots pushed through the dark soil, reaching for the sun with delicate persistence. Clara knelt beside a cluster of violets, her fingers brushing the petals as if greeting old friends. The ritual was simple, yet profound, tending the plants, feeling the texture of leaves, listening to the soft hum of bees. In these small acts, the world made sense again. Linda was in the garden as well, her hands deep in the earth, her face tilted toward the light. Clara could see the quiet transformation in the girl, a softening of the edges, a slow unfurling. It reminded Clara of herself, many years ago, when this house had been her sanctuary, a place where she could be fully herself without masks or expectations. The house by the lake had stood there for as long as Clara could remember, its weathered wooden boards kissed by time and seasons, the peeling paint like pages of a worn diary. It was spring when she arrived, the air sharp with the scent of pine and damp earth, the kind of morning that made the world feel new and quietly expectant. She carried with her the weight of years, the gentle ache of loss tucked deep inside, and a bundle of letters, blank pages at first, waiting for her words to find their way. Clara settled into the old routine of the place. The small, glassed-in veranda caught the first rays of dawn, and she would sit there with a steaming cup of tea, her hands wrapped around the warmth as if it could seep into her bones. Outside, the lake shimmered quietly, its surface smooth like a mirror disturbed only by the occasional drift of a feather or the ripple of a passing bird. The wooden dock, long unused, stretched like a forgotten arm into the water, moss and lichen softening its edges. A shiver of memory stirred when she looked at it, those carefree summers with Marie, laughter bubbling between the trees, their voices mingling with the whisper of the breeze. Each day was woven from simple acts, the soft rustling of leaves underfoot as she raked the garden path, the tender ritual of watering the bright bursts of tulips and daffodils that pushed through the soil, their colors like sparks of joy in the quiet world. The house creaked gently, as if breathing alongside her, and in those moments, Clara found a fragile peace. She began to write, not out loud, but to the one who was no longer there. Her letters were filled with the small details of her days. The way the sunlight pooled on the floor in the afternoon, the sound of the old clock ticking steadily in the corner, the peculiar habit of the old dog Max who, every morning, would wander down from the neighboring cabin to rest his head on her knee. Max was no one's dog, yet he belonged somehow to this place, to the rhythm of the lake, to Clara's quiet mornings. Jur, the painter from the house at the edge of the woods, would come by from time to time, his presence calm and steady like the brushstrokes on his canvases. They never spoke much, but in the shared silence there was a connection, a mutual understanding of solitude, and the slow unfolding of healing. The afternoons stretched into evenings, where the sky bled soft pinks and golds behind the dark silhouettes of pine trees. Clara found herself thinking of Marie more often, not in sharp pangs, but as a gentle current beneath the surface. She wrote of those summers, of the secrets whispered between sisters, of the silent spaces that had grown between them as illness stole time. She confessed her regrets quietly, not in blame but in the hope of forgiveness, for herself, for the past. One afternoon, Linda appeared at the gate, a girl with tangled hair and eyes searching for something she could not name.